All right, our next set of videos are on solving. And so we're going to see three techniques for solving. And the first one that we're going to look at is using a graph to solve. And so how do I do that? Well, here are the steps. Okay, so we'll see we can do this by hand and also on the TI or other graphing calculator. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is write the equations in this form. Specifically, or also like important when we're doing that in the graphing calculator, but also for doing by hand. Then I graph both lines on the same grid. And then I'm looking for the point of intersection, which I call the solution, and that is a point with a value for x and a value for y. So remember earlier when we were solving, or when we were verifying rather our answers, there were two numbers to check. So one of those is x and one of those is y. All right, so let's do that. So this first example, I have two functions. Y is 3x minus 7, and down here f of x is negative x plus 9. Remember that f of x really just means y. This just means y. So let's graph this one. I'm going to start by plotting the point negative 7, and then I'm going to use the slope 3 over 1. So I go up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, and so on to get my first line, which is going to look something like this. And you want to use a ruler here. I don't have a ruler, so my line's not going to be great, but you want to use a ruler so that you can see where those points exactly are. So that's my first one, this guy. And maybe I'll graph the other one in a different color just so you can see. This is going to be in red, negative x plus 9. So it starts at 9, and the slope is negative 1. Remember, that really is negative 1 over 1. So I go down 1 over 1, and so on. And you can see, oh, that's where my solution is. So this line is going to meet that one right there. And back to, go back to my black pen. This point, this point is at the coordinates 4, 5. So my solution is x is 4, y is 5, or simply the coordinates 4, 5. And if you think about this being x and this being y, we could verify those in our equations as well. So 5 equals 3 times x minus 7. 12 minus 7 is 5. Yep. So I know that this solution works in the first equation. And 5 is negative x plus 9. That's also 5. So it works in the other. So that's my solution. Okay. So at this point, we have another one right here. X minus y is 10. 5x plus 3y is 18. So I'd like you to try this one on your own. Pause the video here. Write them first in y equals mx plus b. Graph the two lines. And then find your solution. Where was that? Okay. All right. So what I would do to convert this equation into y equals mx plus b is maybe first add y. So I'd have x is 10 plus y minus 10 minus 10. So I get x take away 10 is y. There's my first equation. So it starts at negative 10 and has a slope of 1. So it's going to look something like that. That's my first one. And then the other one, which I'll do in red, just to be different, minus 5x minus 5x. So I have 3y is negative 5x plus 18. And now I'm going to divide everything by 3. Y is negative 5/3. There's my slope, x, plus 6. So I'm going to start at 6, and I'm going to go down 5 and over 3. And then I'm going to repeat that. And so there's my line. And you can see I should have used a ruler. This black line's slightly off, but there's my solution right there. The coordinates are 6, -4. So I hope you found that as well. Okay, and here's one more to try. This one, again, isolate the y, get it in y equals mx plus b, then try and solve. Okay, so I'm going to start with this equation. I'm going to add 2y and add 2y. X minus 2 is 2y, and then I'm going to divide everything by 2. So I have, I'll just write it over here. Y is, x over 2 really means 1x over 2 or half x, minus this equals 1. So -1, and the slope is up 1 over 2. So there's my line, and it helps to draw a number of points when you're doing these, especially if you're doing it like me without a ruler. There you have it. There's our first one. And the second one, notice here that my y value is positive. I'm going to leave it where it is, and I'm going to move the x and the 16 to the other side. So I'm going to go minus 3x plus 16. That's going to give me 4y on its own, and then I'm going to have minus 3x plus 16 on that side. And now I have to divide everything by the coefficient of y, which is 4. So I'm going to get y is -3/4. There's m, the slope. X plus, that's 4. So there's that. And now I have to go down 3 and over 4, and you can see they're going to meet right there. So there's my other line. And the solution here is at 4, 1. So I hope you found that as well. So what I would say here for doing this on the TI calculator, the first thing I want to do is make sure I have my two equations in mx plus b. So y1 and y2. They're both in slope intercept form. Okay, so I have to have them like that to then enter them in the calculator. So what do? I hit y equals, that button is at the top left, and y1 will be my first equation, or either of them, it doesn't matter, one of them, and y2 will be the other equation. And then I hit enter, and then I hit graph, and graph is along the top as well. So I hit graph, and then you should see across your screen, say I was doing this one, you should see it will produce the red line and then the black line, and you want to find that point. And on something simple like this, you can actually read it off of there. But to find the point, now I want to hit second function, then I want to hit trace, and then I get a menu of options. And number 5 says intersect, or intersection or something, I forget. You want to hit that. And then you hit enter 3 times. Enter, enter, enter. And on the bottom, it's going to say something like first curve, and you hit enter. And then it's going to say second curve, and you hit enter. And then it says guess, and you say thank you very much, and you hit enter. And then it tells you the solution. So try that with this guy, with the equations, -3/4x plus 4 and 1/2 x minus 1. So y1, y2, or vice versa, and see if you get this solution. At the bottom of your screen, it'll say x equals